To live with a disability is a tough thing, but should it completely consume who you are? In high school, that may have been the inevitable, but in transitioning to college, it becomes much easier for a student to advocate for themselves. Here at Cabrini College, there's many resources for a person with disabilities to take advantage of. Kathy Johnson is the head of the Disability Resource Center, or the DRC, here at Cabrini College. This is a place for students with disabilities to get the help that they are entitled to by law.
I advocate for students here by acting as a middle person, if you will, if they're struggling with any type of difficulty achieving the accommodations that they need to receive. Students self-identify to my department that they have a disability, and then upon doing that they register with me, which means that they provide their documentation for me to verify the disability, but more importantly, I meet with them to talk about what accommodations they need to level the playing field in terms of their access to learning and to being successful. They receive a document called a visa, which they provide to their instructors, and this stands for Verified Individualized Services and Accommodations. This document does not disclose their disability, it just states to the professor that they qualify for the accommodations that are checked off on it. I encourage students to advocate for themselves in terms of meeting with their professors to discuss how their disability impacts their learning. Confidentiality-wise, they do not have to disclose what their disability is. However, they can if they choose to do so, and that often helps professors to understand perhaps where they're coming from, where their learning challenges are. If there's a situation where a student feels that their accommodations are not being met, or that they're not able to access learning or the assessment in a way that supports them, then I act as an advocate and often will generate conversations with the professor, meet with them individually, or arrange a meeting with the students so that we can better understand the impact of the disability on the learning outcome.
For freshmen, especially ones with a disability, adjusting to life on campus can be tough, but it is the responsibility of Kathy and her colleagues to aid them in this transition.
I think for freshmen, the biggest concern and problem is just adjusting to life on college campus anyway, but they're also adjusting to college life with a disability. So for the freshmen, I can say the biggest concern is their worry, if you will, about how they will be perceived by peers, by their professor. They often are not comfortable or have not had much experience discussing their disability. So for the freshmen, again, it's teaching them how to advocate for themselves, how to understand their own disability in a way that maybe they never understood before.
The DRC exists for students with disabilities to take advantage of. There's a multitude of students with completely different disabilities, some social, some mental, and some physical. Here are a few of their stories. This is Brendan Everett, a junior year business administration major at Cabrini. Brendan has Asperger's syndrome, a mild form of autism. Like everyone his freshman year, Brendan was frightened about coming to Cabrini, even more so due to his disability. But after comparing it to his high school life, he soon embraced the idea.
High school, there wasn't much social interaction. I had maybe not even like 1/10, not maybe 1/20th of the amount of people that I know here would be in high school. I'd had like maybe 8 or 10 really close friends, and that was it. I really didn't like to socialize with the people in my high school because of how some of them were treating me in the earlier years. So I felt that it just wasn't, I felt that they weren't meant to be social. I didn't want to be social with them. But in college, like I said, nobody knew me, so I just decided to treat everyone like they were new, and it worked out well for me. Socially, I'm much more well known here on a positive note, and I'm actually pretty happy because usually making friends was one of the hardest things for me when I was younger, and it's so easy. It was really easy for me in college. It's almost like I didn't even have to work at it.
Now that Brendan has transitioned well, he's no longer letting his disability set him back socially. But how does a student advocate for themselves academically? By taking advantage of the DRC, of course. This is Jenna, a sophomore here at Cabrini College. She suffers from dyslexia and praises Cabrini's disability resources.
my other school, there was no understanding, there was no attempt to understand, and there was no resources. While the tour guide, the guided tour of the school was great, and they said there were resources. Once I actually got there, there were not. And Cabrini has a track record of working with kids who have learning disabilities and getting them through college so we can have a diploma, because we're just as smart as everyone else. We just learn differently.
But not every disability affects someone only mentally. Some are physically depriving. This is Emily Mancuso, a social work major at Cabrini. She has cerebral palsy, a disorder that can involve brain and nervous system functions such as movement, learning, hearing, seeing, and thinking. At first, it was difficult for her to confront her disability, but she soon learned to deal with it as she matured.
I was really hard at first. I'm not that type of person to really go up front and just say whatever is on my mind about my disability. So it was very difficult at first. But I learned that it's so important in order to do well. It's really important to let your professors know what your needs are so they can help you succeed.
Even though the help they receive is important, what these students want the most is for others to understand their disability.
I usually try to tell them that basically it's not a full mental retardation, which some people may think. A lot of people thought I was just being bad when I was younger. Usually just being a bad kid, teachers thought that too. The thing is, it's just something up here. It's not something here or anywhere else in the body. It just affects my way of thinking, so that's why I tell people. It's more of a thinking process, a neurological issue, more than it is anything else.
Having dyslexia is difficult. The best way I can get you to understand is close your eyes, seriously. And think of a time when you were so uncomfortable. It can be your personal life, it can be academic. You're so uncomfortable. You want to crawl out of your skin, you don't want to be there, you want to run. Now, add a layer of shame, and that's what it feels like to walk into a classroom when you have a learning disability.
I just want people to understand that, just because it's a disability doesn't mean that there's different, doesn't mean that we can't really do what others can do. I did have one experience with a professor that told me that I will not be able to get the accommodations in the real world, so he wouldn't want me to get them now. I mean, he has to because it's the law, but he was a little hesitant. And that kind of hurt me, obviously, because I felt like I was being invalidated. So I just want the professors to realize that this is here. It does happen. People get disabilities, but they can still do well in what they choose to do.
Okay, my recommendation and best advice for incoming students to Cabrini, if they know that they have any type of a disability, is to contact my office earlier than later so that we can make the arrangements for any accommodations that they need. But also, it's important for freshmen, and I tell this to their parents, that they have a really good understanding of what their disability means to them and how it impacts their learning, because that's the first step in helping them to advocate for what they need. So if they have an understanding that they have, for instance, a learning disability, or that they struggle with attention deficit disorder, then we can talk about that and how it will impact their ability to take notes or to take a test, to sit in the lecture class, those types of things. So that would be my best advice, is to help them have a really strong understanding of what their disability means.